Good morning, everybody. My name is Ann Soares. As you all know, I am a Fairhaven resident, but we have some state elections coming up, so I have taken my Meet the Candidates strategy to a whole new level. And today I am joined with Henry Bousquet. He is running for state representative to represent the 9th Bristol District. Good morning.
Good morning, Ann.
It's nice to see you.
Thank you for having me in.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, more recently, districting has hit the national headlines. It's sort of a distant memory, but just to clarify, I wanted to give folks some context about the geography of the 9th district,
Sure.
the 9th Bristol District, I should say. Talk a little bit about where you hope to represent.
So I recently moved to the far north end of New Bedford in 2001 with my wife and kids. And that area is, I think we're in precinct F. So the district is made up of a piece of New Bedford, which is Ward 1, precincts D, E, and F, which is basically north of Trukey's.
Okay.
It's actually, there's a piece also that's in the little bubble around Voc Tech too. So it's probably more like Turkland Hill north, but it's oddly shaped. So there are people on Acushnet Avenue who aren't in the district, and people on Acushnet Avenue who are in the district. And then the majority of the district is made up of Dartmouth.
Okay.
So all of Dartmouth is the 9th Bristol District.
Oh, wow.
And then that little sliver of New Bedford.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird district, but for me, it makes it a little easier to target, right? Like I know exactly where my people are. And I mean, who doesn't love Dartmouth? I've lived in this area my whole life, and except for about a year where I spent a year at Walt Disney World working in Florida. But the entirety of Dartmouth is amazing, right? It's everything from big, beautiful palaces, basically, to rugged waterfront and beautiful farmland. I mean, it really is not unlike New Bedford in its geographical this sort of desirable location. It's just a beautiful place to live.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like your district is really tightly packed. I mean,
Yes.
some of these districts get,
Oh my gosh.
they're just
Yeah,
wildly
the 8th
cut
Bristol
up.
District is made up of like 5 different communities. I think that is Acushnet, Freetown, Westport. They're all spread out pretty wildly.
Right,
So,
right.
so I'm fortunate in the fact that I happen to live in the district that is probably the most, probably makes the most sense as a district. So
Why state rep?
why am I running for state rep?
Yes. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
this is a
Well-
leap and a half for you, because this isn't your first rodeo in
No,
politics.
I was a city councilor for 5 years, and I honestly probably would have done that job a long time. But it was difficult to do it under the situation I was in. But I really, really enjoyed it. I loved being, a conduit for the people to connect to government, for a way to find solutions to their problems that government can help them with. That was my favorite part of being a city councilor. Did I like pouring through the budget? Yeah, it was interesting. I found it very interesting to see what it costs to move the city forward, and what it costs to pay professionals like educators and people in public service like EMTs and police officers and firefighters and stuff like that. It was really interesting to see also what their job entails too. I got a really good look. I got to do some ride-alongs with the police and fire training day with the firefighters. So I really got an intimate knowledge of what it takes to run a municipality. So when this seat popped open, I had just gone through this little situation with the school committee where I had put my hat in the ring to serve on the school committee in Bruce Oliveira's stead. And that got really messy politically for some crazy reasons that really I still can't figure out,
Yeah.
But I really felt like I was qualified for that job. I have municipal experience. I've been an educator for 20 years. I thought I was sort of a lock. I thought I was like the right guy, for the moment. And when that sort of fell apart on me and I had to step away from it, I had a conversation with my wife, and T has always been very supportive of my ambitions and stuff, and she knows how much public service meant to me. So she said, "Hey, if you want to run for city council, run for city council." She's like, "I know you can't get paid, but who cares?" And I started thinking about it, and then this opportunity opened up. Of course, Markey stepped aside, kind of like in the 11th hour, really, in terms of like planning for a campaign. And I just said, "Geez, it seems like a really good opportunity. Too good of an opportunity to pass up."
Right.
And I know the constituency in New Bedford. I know the people of Dartmouth quite well. I mean, I grew up with most of them. A lot of people who grew up in New Bedford fled, for lack of a better word, to Dartmouth, right, to live there and raise their families. And I just said, "What do you think about state rep?" And she goes, "I don't care. Do what you want to do." Like she was really supportive. She's like, "If it's gonna make you happy, it's not that I don't love my career as a teacher. I really enjoy what I've been doing, and I've always worked part time as a chef. So I've always had two jobs anyway.
Yeah.
And I guess I thought initially when I got into this that I could do this state rep job, while I was a teacher too. But the more I dug into it, the more I looked at the scheduling and what it takes to be there to vote, and what it takes to show up in the district for your constituents,
Right.
I didn't think it'd be possible.
Right.
So, if I am lucky enough to get elected to this position, then I would have to step down as educator.
Right.
I just put my career on pause and see where the state rep thing takes me.
Right. So now, I guess just to clarify, are you running unopposed right
Oh,
now?
no.
Who are you running against?
So I actually jumped in and then found out there was already somebody in the Republican seat running for it.
Okay.
So I'm going to primary somebody. We're both fairly new to state races, so we're both new to state races. In fact, actually, everybody in the race is new to politics for the most part.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the two Democrat challengers, primary on the Democrat side too. So it really is a really good opportunity for this seat to be highlighted. For the people of New Bedford and Dartmouth to really get a look at who it is, and I think they have a really good set of choices. There are, in my opinion, 4 people who are, qualified to do the job in the race.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. September 1st is the primary.
Yes.
So that'll be exciting to see. I think I got a pretty good shot of making it past that, and we'll just see who ends up in the final.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are 4 candidates, including myself.
Well, and
3 applicants.
it's humble of you to say, "Gosh, like we're all new, we're all qualified," and I think that for voters, I would think that feels like a breath of fresh air, because for so long it's like, oh, it's the same old people running for office election cycle after election cycle, and it just feels like, that's probably where apathy starts to set in, because people are like, well, okay, what am I?
If you run
I'm going to vote
unopposed
for the same people.
if you run unopposed for 25 years and there's only ever one name on the ballot, it's what else can you do?
Right.
Write in Mickey Mouse, but then all it is an oppositional vote.
Right.
It's really nice to have choices. I think.
For sure, especially now, because there's a lot happening.
Yeah,
in
for
this
sure.
state. What I know this is a bit of a loaded question. There is so much happening in Massachusetts. But what
do my best with it.
What do you see as the top maybe 2-3 issues to wrestle with?
Well, for sure, I think everybody is just floored by the utility bills. I think that's the number one thing. We got to take a look at that, pick that apart, and fix what's going on there. Because, I got a gas bill the other day. It was $17. Okay, no big deal. But then you look at the bill. 70 cents, 77 cents, in fact, was what I used in supply for the month. And the rest of the bill, the other $16 worth of the bill, were fees. Which, if you magnify that, if you're using a lot, like say you're a restaurant, you're looking at like a $3,000 gas bill, and that slaps pretty hard when you're trying to pay minimum wage, which is now $15 an hour, and groceries have seen a spike in cost somewhere around 40% over the last 5 years, and that's been a major cost adjustment. I'm sure everybody's noticed that when they went to have a snack somewhere or eat out with their family. Gone to their days or going out for a family of 4, even at like a place like Burger King for $50. You can't do it.
Right.
It's $75 no matter where you go now.
Right.
So
Yeah, and for small
it's a big
business, I
hit.
mean, for those mom and pop coffee shops, I mean, when you start putting all of those costs into the bucket, you no longer get a $2 cup of coffee.
You
I mean,
can't.
that math,
Doesn't math anymore.
it
Yeah.
doesn't math
Nope. Yep.
anymore at
Yep.
all.
The cup, the straw, the ice that goes in it.
The coffee grounds, the
Everything.
rent,
At the end of the day,
all
yeah,
of it.
yeah. At the end of the day, that cup of coffee is costing the business $3 to produce. They have to charge you $6 for it.
Yeah, for sure. So aside from utility bills, what else do you plan to tackle, I guess?
Well, I think that is probably the biggest thing, and then the next thing for me is education. I think we have to get away from screens. I think we have to enforce attendance. I think we have to go back to a meritocracy, where students just don't get promoted because they're old enough. I think students have to earn that right to go to the next grade, and I think that's better for them and better for the other students in their class. One thing I've noticed trending in education, just because I'm so exposed to it, is the students coming in at a lower sort of social emotional mental health. They have trouble managing their emotions, dealing with consequence. Surviving in a group dynamic is more difficult for kids. And then you ask them to do the work, that we need them to do to prove that they're, engaging with the material and understanding what it is that we're asking them to do. And they're struggling. They're struggling with reading, and not just reading short snippets, but ask them to read a page in a book. It's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's not because they can't read necessarily. It's because they don't have the stamina for it. So I think that's a huge issue for education, and it trickles down to everything.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring up education, because when I was preparing to vote in my local election that just happened recently, I was down a rabbit hole of net school spending. It's one of those concepts, if you will, that I was just recently introduced to. And I think it's one of those things that's very easy to oversimplify.
Yes.
And when you start to think about the costs of educating kids today, I was blown away. I mean, in my town, education is 42% of the budget, which is wild. But then I couldn't help but think to myself, and I've been talking to a few people that are in the education space, they work in different schools in different capacities. And I, at the risk of sounding like an old curmudgeon person, I mean, I was in elementary school in the late 70s. That gives you a sense of where I am age-wise. It was not unusual to have, 25, 30 kids in a class, one instructor. And I'm not saying there weren't challenges, but that's just how the structure of education was back then.
That was the model. That is the model. Yeah.
Now, you fast forward now to a relatively short period of time in history, and you have teachers, you have paraprofessionals. There's layers and layers and layers of support staff that are now required in order to educate probably half as many kids. And that just blows my mind. And I just couldn't help but think to myself, yes, we can talk about, we need to increase schools, the budgets for school spending. But I was also struggling a little bit with, is there actually this parallel conversation that's happening around how did we get to a place where we need layers and layers and layers of administrative staff to educate our kids? And to your point, we've gotten to a place. I was listening to one of the school board members recently at a committee meeting saying, his wife comes home with bruises. She's a school nurse and comes home with bruises because kids are taking 32-ounce Stanley bottles and throwing them at people. And I thought, how did we get to a place where kids feel emboldened to throw things at educators? And why? I mean, because we're just treating a symptom, I would argue.
Yeah, we are.
And it doesn't get less expensive.
No. Part of it is there's been, I think, an uptick in individualized education plans, and 504 accommodation plans. So when you add those things into general ed education, there's been a move since like 93 or so to get all the kids in the same room together, right? No matter their level, no matter their struggles with English language or their, physical or mental state, right? The idea is that it's better to be inclusive, right? So they all get a chance to work together. But the problem is one educator, even if it's 20 kids, can't possibly service 20 individual sets of needs.
Right.
The education model wasn't built that way. A room with one educator and 20 children isn't as effective as it used to be when kids had the stamina to read alone for an hour, and make it through the material so they could be tested out, That just isn't really happening as much anymore today. You'll see that more in your AP classes, the higher performing students, which every school has, thankfully. But you have your your regular population of kids where they're mixed in with students who are either newcomers to the country, don't speak English, or have a shorter vocabulary, a smaller understanding of the English language for whatever reason, and then you have children who have real mental difficulties, problems processing, problems reading. We always had, even when we went to school, there was still kids with dyslexia and stuff like that. But I think teachers had an opportunity to work with those kids when they could say, okay, class, read from page 8 to page 12, and we'll go over the material. And then she would butterfly around the room and help little Johnny, who was struggling, and Mary, who wasn't as good at it, where you don't get as much of that opportunity today. And then you add in, behavioral problems, students who can't sit still, which has always been an issue too, but to a point where it's detrimental. They're throwing things, or they're highly autistic and it's maybe not diagnosed. There are lots of things that educators see today that would probably shock you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's wild to hear about the classroom dynamic now. I just can't help but notice the swing in a very short period of time, and I get, and I'm not suggesting that the budgets aren't necessary, because the need has certainly changed and evolved. There's no question about that. But I think the real question is long term. How do we begin to pull that pendulum back just a little bit?
Right.
So that
I'd like us to get to a point where we're being as effective as we can be for the dollars we're spending. And I don't know if that is necessarily happening today. Because like you said, it's a trajectory. The costs are going to continue to increase because utilities increase, the cost of water is increasing, and then what it costs to be a professional. Like the education a teacher has to go through. If you want to teach history in this state, you have to have a master's degree, and then you have to pass your MTELs. So it's a fair amount of education. It takes some time to get there, and you're 24, really, by the time you're like a fully fledged educator. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you got to work 3 years before they call you professional.
Interesting. Okay.
And so then there's that. So there's a lot of waiting, and a lot of schools have pretty large sort of step plans. So educators don't start right away at 75 grand,
Right.
They come in, they might, now I think they're starting in around 60. And then, they're topping out at 100,000, which, 105,000 or whatever, which is not terrible money.
Right.
But, $100,000 isn't today what it was in the 90s either,
Right. And
so,
certainly not in Massachusetts.
no
Massachusetts
way.
is a high cost of living
I think
state.
it's the most cost of living.
Yeah, it's in the top 3.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it is
Yeah,
what
what
it
is it? It's Massachusetts, Hawaii, and New York,
I-
which is kind of funny to be in the same bucket with Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because Hawaii, it's a channel of islands. You would expect the cost of living to be a little different there because
Sure,
you're paying
it's
for
different on
freight
Martha's
and-
Vineyard.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and there's a reason for that. It's transportation, right? So, to me, that Massachusetts is probably the most expensive place to live is bananas.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's not beautiful and doesn't have its, qualities as to why you'd want to live here, but I don't think it's got much to do with that. It's got more to do with,
Other
how the
things.
government's run. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because Just in the last couple of days, I know Suffolk University just did a poll that said that 56% of residents in the state of Massachusetts are considering leaving. That is deeply concerning.
Oh, sure it is.
And then there's been some statistics that the majority of that pool are between 28 and 40.
Yeah,
and I thought,
gotta
my
be in
gosh,
there.
like I mean, there's the future
Yeah,
right
that's
there. I
that's
mean,
your
you're not
breadwinning
talking
years.
about
Right.
retirees.
No. That's your breadwinning years. Yeah. Retirees now feel like they're kind of trapped,
Yeah.
They're here, they're like, house is paid off. I can't go anywhere without getting a mortgage. What do I do,
Yeah.
So you're right. What we're going to lose, the people who are going to flee from Massachusetts are, the brain trust and the breadwinners of the future. They're going to take with them their GDP,
Yeah.
and we're going to be left without
Right.
here.
Yeah.
And who's going to support that? I don't know.
Yeah, it remains to be seen because
Yeah.
in the last year, I mean, there's been headline after headline after headline. Raytheon left a couple of years ago. Cape Cod Potato Chip announced just a little bit earlier this year that they were leaving. Coca-Cola
Yeah,
just
just now,
announced
yeah.
that they're leaving Western Mass. So you have all these companies now
Yep.
that are taking their operations elsewhere. Bob Kraft is looking at
Yep,
moving
New
his
Hampshire,
operation to New Hampshire, I
I
believe,
think
if
it's
I'm
New
not
Hampshire. Yeah,
mistaken.
I think so. Yeah.
So you have people now that are considering leaving, but you also have opportunity that is considering leaving. So
That's the
now you're
biggest
just
problem.
whittling away at the
Yeah.
reasons. The young
I
people
know some
probably
people will
think,
say, "Oh, Coca-Cola's only 150 jobs. Oh, kick up potato chip, big deal." Yeah, they're big deals. They're anchors in the community.
Yeah.
So, and then we're not putting enough focus on, building the next generation of plumbers and carpenters and electricians.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're losing all kinds of stuff here in Massachusetts. Or we have the threat of that anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Well, and then you combine that with the fact that the ballot initiative to reduce the state income tax just got thrown off.
Yeah.
Got thrown off the ballot.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
people sitting around have to be thinking, and the hits just keep on coming.
Yeah, well, it's crazy, and when you read the article, it tells you that the reason it didn't pass is because the attorney general, goofed up the way they wrote the description,
It's
which
unconscionable to me.
Yeah, I don't understand how that one thing can discount 75,000 people who said, "I'd like to see this on the ballot."
Yeah.
Same thing with the audit, right?
Well, I mean, 76% of the people voted for the audit, and we're still waiting on that.
Yeah, you're never going to see that. Not a true, honest audit. Not something that we really, I think, the 72% of people that voted for it were looking for.
Well, and the state
You know.
Supreme Court just said, yeah, you have full authority to limit the scope. So the audit is basically useless, even if they do it at
Right,
this
exactly.
point.
They're just going to get what they want to show them, which defeats the purpose of an audit, right? Like if you're giving me the books I want to see, well, that doesn't help me.
Right.
Doesn't help you get to the real costs.
What do there's going to be a lot happening. I mean, we have a governor's race happening this year. We have plenty of, state seats up for grabs or, up for choice this year. What do you see as the path forward? I mean, how do you, because we're in a supermajority.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
I know.
kind of the elephant in the room.
No, it sure is. And right now we've got 5 senators that are Republicans and 25 House seats that are Republican. But we've got more challengers in this round than we've had in 20 years. So real challengers, people who are, on the other side of the ticket. But that's the thing. You have to get Massachusetts. Now, what I've noticed, I've been an election commissioner in New Bedford for 10 years.
Oh, interesting.
One of the things I've noticed was this shift from both sides of the aisle, right? People have been fleeing both the Democrat and the Republican Party consistently now for the last 5 years. And it's opened up this massive unenrolled sort of swath. 60% of Dartmouth is unenrolled. Which means they haven't chosen a party, right? They have to choose one at the ballot box in September, and that's kind of what I'm banking on. I hope that folks, decide, let's vote in the Republican race, and then they have to pick in the general, who they're going to side with. And I really hope they look at what's happened, right? Like here we are, we've got 100 years of supermajority in Massachusetts, and where has it left us, right? It's left us with a fleeing brilliant population that's taking their education they got here and getting the heck out of Dodge. We've got businesses by the truckload packing up and saying it's cheaper to do business in Virginia and South Carolina. And then you've got utility costs that are just, I mean, making it unsustainable to live here. I can't even imagine how the elderly folks are doing it. I know that places like Pace are running out of money, before it even gets cold.
Right.
They've
right.
obligated most of their budgets for fuel assistance and stuff. So I think that now is the time for the people in Massachusetts really to make a decision. Hey, do we want more of the same, or can we give the other side of the aisle some opportunity here to make change? And the best part about it is, for myself, I'm not coming at it one way or the other as a really staunch Republican. I'm kind of a middle of the road guy. Like, I like to hear what people have to say and make an informed decision. I want to make sure that the people I represent feel represented. I want to bring my brand of constituent services to the seat and show up at Beacon Hill ready for a fight. Because I think that's what you have to do if you're a Republican.
Yeah.
You're always going to be the no vote, and I'm ready. I'm prepared to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, you might not always want to vote no on something. If my constituency says, I really think we need this, then I'm going to have to vote for it, even if it's against my Republican counterparts. And I'm sure they won't be happy to hear that. But that's the bottom line. If I'm going to represent the people of Dartmouth and New Bedford, then that's who I'm going to represent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to represent special interests.
What's interesting is that in the last year and a half, I've always been a little bit of a political nerd my whole adult life. I've gotten for sure more entrenched in local politics probably in the last year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been incredibly passionate about, especially because I'm a real estate advisor on the South Coast. I mean, I serve people trying to buy and sell and make moves and things like that. What I hope people understand is that there is a deep connection between who is serving in local office and your standard of living in a particular community. And I don't think people fully appreciate that. There has not been enough, dare I say, banging of that drum.
No.
And so I have been out to the extent that I can be out, really encouraging people to meet as many candidates as possible, ask them questions that are deeply important to you, and then, lastly, show up and decide accordingly.
Yeah, come out and vote.
I mean, make your voice heard, because, we were just talking about the income tax ballot initiative.
Yeah.
Income tax is decided at the state level. No one in Washington is deciding that.
Nope.
Insurance costs are decided at the state level. Whether you can build or add ADUs is decided at the very local level. So I really hope that people are waking up to the idea that hyper-local politics matters, which is why I'm so grateful that candidates are willing to sit down and have this conversation.
Oh, sure. I think this format now is the way most people get their news. I've been watching long-form content for 6-7 years now. It's, for me, it's the most informative.
And I think, just from affordability is one of those buzzwords and what I see oftentimes in a lot of threads is people talking about the cost of housing. Yes, the cost of housing has gone up, particularly, especially since COVID, the last 5-6 years. I mean, housing
exploded.
costs have gone up. And, the governor has, dare I say, replenished the grant funding to help people get to the closing table, with down payment assistance and things like that. And don't come for me. I'm not against down payment assistance. My challenge with it is this. You can help them get to the closing table, but if you don't help them stay in their homes, I don't know what you've done to serve them.
Right, exactly.
I mean, you're talking about Eversource bills and the cost of groceries and the cost, the building codes that we have in Massachusetts have made it very, very difficult to do renovations and things like that.
Oh, sure. Well, that's why it's
that's
costs
where I'm
less
at.
to knock stuff down and rebuild it, right? Because now it's easier to have a clean pad to work on versus, like you said, with the building codes, having to figure out what's legal, what's not, It's just easier to start with a clean palette,
Yeah.
I know Dartmouth is experiencing a spurt of growth, and I think that's urged partly because they have land. They have land in Dartmouth. which is, it's sort of bittersweet, right? Because you want to maintain the community feel of Dartmouth, the agricultural feel of Dartmouth, but you also want to serve the children of Dartmouth, right? The kids that are growing out of their parents' homes and want to stay local, but can't afford a $600,000 house,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a very realistic thing. When you're 25 years old, there is a very small amount of people who can afford to buy a home of that value, and stay in their community. So they have to have an opportunity to rent and then sort of build their wealth. But if you're paying rent that's $2,500 a month, it's like a mortgage.
Right.
That's hard to do too,
Yeah, you can't
So,
save. It's tough.
yeah. So, with the 40B issue in Dartmouth, there's like 3, I think, major projects right now under review. That's supposed to alleviate some of that. But then you've got the good side and the bad side of that too. You've got people who are like, hey, I've been in this neighborhood forever. I thought I'd be looking at those trees until I died. And, that's
Not so much.
right. I mean, that's
Right.
definitely, and I think the government's in a position where, they just want to be able to service the future, without ignoring the past. But also, if you force your hand too much, right, then what happens typically with a 40B development is that it'll go to court, right, and then the court will say you let them build it anyway because that's how it works.
Right.
And then the government has, the local government has no say in what happens. So you kind of want to. They're doing a good job, I think, in Dartmouth, trying to balance all of those issues.
Yeah, it's a lot to. I mean, it's a tightrope.
Oh, it sure is.
For sure. What do you think about another initiative that's on the ballot in the fall? Is this whole idea of rent control?
Oh, that got thrown out too.
Oh.
Yep.
I didn't hear that update.
Yep. That was recently poo-pooed for the same reason. The Supreme Court said,
It wasn't written properly.
Yeah, it wasn't written properly. It was a religious thing. There was a religious exemption written into it for, So because of that exemption, they said you can't, restrict in any way religious rights or whatever.
Well, now I'm gonna have to go do some digging.
Yeah,
on
that one's gone too. Which, from my perspective, is probably a good thing because I don't know how rent control is really effective on a sort of a global scale like that for Massachusetts. Like,
Well,
if
Europe
I've
has already
got one
proven that didn't
three-family,
work out so well.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
We've tried this.
Yes.
in
Well,
other
I think the
places.
whole model of socialism is sort of been tried, right? Like, it doesn't work. So the fact that everybody's like rah rah socialism, it's just I think it's just a generation that didn't maybe get that in history. Maybe we didn't teach that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like something was missed for sure, because how they could be cheering for, giving up the meats production and things like that just makes me scratch my head.
What are your thoughts on, again, no secret, Mass is a super majority, and I know you're very passionate about education. You're passionate about helping the next generation to
Exactly,
stay here and things like that. What are your thoughts on encouraging businesses to come back here? I mean, we already have some leaving, but you
Yeah,
also, in order to encourage the next generation to stay here, they have to have
Something to
opportunity.
do,
They
for
got
sure.
to have something to do.
Yeah. What can be done? Well, I think we have to look at regulation first, and I think, there's been some move toward that on the federal level, but in Massachusetts, it's as tight as it's ever been. And I think we have to fight for that. I don't know what the specific rules and regulations are that are preventing business from being done here, but I know utilities is one of those things, and that is something that the state government has full control over, right? They can totally negotiate what we're paying for energy. And cheap energy is really what makes communities grow and what brings businesses in, right? That's at least the first thing, right? Then you've got TIFs and things like that you can do from a local community to make it more amenable for business to build here. But I think, didn't we just have a large, over the last 10 years or so, a big influx of lab space being built and things like that? And from what I hear, those are going, pretty much, very few of those are getting tenants, So that space has been built out for purposefully for science and biotech and all that, and it's not as big a boom as they had anticipated. And I think that's got a lot to do with
Which
regulations.
is interesting because we have a huge healthcare sector.
Oh, yeah,
here.
yeah.
I mean, maybe making a connection that is, overly simple, but you'd think that those two would go hand in hand.
Yeah, and I think that they can. I just think that regulation has kept it makes it less desirable for those businesses. They look at it and they go, oh, I know the rent's kind of cheap and we're getting a grant, but in 5 years, the utilities will be this, the base pay is that, like the land cost is this. Like I think there are issues that are probably still preventing them from
Yeah,
making
they're
that
doing
choice.
long-term math, and maybe it's not appealing.
Yeah, yeah, because you have to when you're in business, right? Like you
Okay.
don't open up a business to run it for a day,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Well, and my experience with commercial leasing is that generally speaking, I mean, small businesses are naturally a little bit more
Oh,
of an
sure.
exception, but for these big biotech companies, I mean, they're negotiating leases that are 10, 20 years
Oh, sure.
deep, because they're not going to invest the money
No, yeah.
in doing commercial build out on that scale
No, and
to,
I could just
be out in
imagine
5
what
years.
the equipment in those, in some, I mean, I know what the equipment in restaurants costs, so the equipment in laboratories must be, probably at 10 times, cost, cost difference, I would
Right.
imagine.
Right. What do you think about? We talked about rent control, this mass ballot initiative. I don't know how we get costs down here. I mean, there's been health insurance is another big
Oh,
thing.
wow, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That's crazy for everybody.
How do we? I just read somewhere they're looking at 26% increase. They're proposing a 26% increase going into the next year.
Yeah,
What in the green space is happening right
I don't
now?
know, but that's when you look at budgets like New Bedford's budget, you're going to see, I think it's something like 30, maybe might even be in the $40 million range now, is just for healthcare. That's just for healthcare, and the city doesn't have that many employees really. I mean, when you roll a school into it, it's got more, but
Yeah.
if you think of the school as separate, I think they really only have like 12 or 1,300 employees.
Yeah.
And that's fire and police and EMS and like those are, I mean, there's not that many of them, but they make up probably half of those folks, right? And then you get DPI and all that. So like we're not talking about a lot of people, but we're talking about big dollars, right?
Yeah.
Like $40 million for that many people is crazy. I know it's really expensive at school too. It's our number one cost driver
Yeah, I believe it.
for school, at Voc Tech. I know that's a big section of what we pay for. And it's not like we pay, I don't think it's, like, I think it's expensive, but that's because it comes out of my paycheck, But I think everybody looks at their healthcare bill and says, how did it get to that,
Yeah. And it would be one thing if you knew, everything was covered.
Oh, yeah.
The challenge is
Oh,
that
no.
you're
We still
paying
get bills.
a hefty premium,
Yeah.
and you still get a bill every time you go. The deductibles are high, the co-pays are high, everything about it is high.
Yep.
And in Massachusetts, you're penalized for not having it.
Yep. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
In some cases, it's probably, cheaper to pay the penalty, honestly, than it is to pay for the health insurance.
I have this conversation every year because I know what we pay, and the challenge, of course, is that you always think about, God forbid, something happened.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. I
And,
mean, you want
now
it to be
what?
available
If I don't
for
have
you.
if I don't have health insurance and I show up at a hospital, I mean, yes, in an emergency situation, they have to treat you. They can't just say, "Toodaloo, we're not going to help you." But the whole premise not that long ago, when health insurance was being discussed at the federal level, was people shouldn't have to go bankrupt because they got sick. Well, people now they're still going
Oh, of
bankrupt
course.
because they get sick.
Probably more so than ever. Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Something's
That's
got
a
to be
big
done
one, Ann.
there.
I mean, that is also something I think the state legislature can help with, right? That's something that they should be focused on, a problem they should be focused on solving, right? And I don't know what they know yet, but it does seem to me like it's just really out of whack, Well, it's interesting. You have pets, right? So if we go to the vet to get gabapentin for our dog, we got, I think, 7 days worth of pills was like $30. No, 100 and no, Yeah, it was something like $30 or $40, right? Where we get a month's worth of that same medicine from a pharmacy, like at Walmart, for half that price. So it's like $40 or something for the entire prescription for the month, right? So 120 pills versus that 7 day, gap bit we got from the vet for 40 or whatever. It's bonkers to me. But you look at it, all of the prescription medicine you pay for kind of operates that way. It's almost easier or less expensive to pay for health care without insurance.
Yeah, and that's another whole thing that just is maddening to me. The cash price of I mean, the amount of money that they bill for your insurance or to your insurance is so much, more expensive than if you just walked in and said, "Listen, I broke my arm.
Can you fix it?"
Tell me
Yeah.
what it costs to put a cast on it or whatever."
Right, and half the time
It
you
shouldn't
leave
be
there.
that way.
I know. And what I think what is maddening is that there's no way. I think doctors feel naked if they try to go out on their own away from a group, right? And not take insurance. I think they feel naked. I don't know how else to describe it, but it would seem to me if I was a doctor being newly minted today with, $250,000 in school debt, that I'd want to work for somebody to help pay that off.
Yeah, yeah.
Before I made any really scary decisions about my own, perspective on it, right? And then I think, wouldn't it be great if there was a doctor who was like, I'm going to be the Superman here. I'm going to step away from the insurance model and I'm going to do private pay. There are doctors who would do that around the country.
Concierge is gaining a little bit more traction. I mean,
But
there's
it
not
must
as
be
much.
frightening, right? Because I'm sure that they have, they have the malpractice insurance to pay,
Sure.
and I can't imagine what those are. I know my wife actually used to carry a malpractice insurance when she was an athletic trainer because it was just good business to do
Sure,
it,
yeah.
even though she worked for an organization. And that wasn't cheap. That was like $100 a month. And
Yeah.
she, hardly, I mean, most of the time the people she's touching already have insurance.
Right.
They're insured by the entity that's employed her.
Right.
But it was one of those things where you never know. Like she was coming home one time on the highway, and there was an accident in front of her. She grabbed her med kit. She jumped out of the car to go check on the guy. He was in a motorcycle, ripped the bottom of his foot off, and she applied first aid and helped him until
Yikes,
people, until the EMTs and all them got there. But like that situation right there, you might not be covered under the Good Samaritan law. You could be in trouble if, you apply some first aid that
Right,
maybe
right.
the EMT wouldn't have or
Especially
whatever.
if they find out that you are a certain professional.
Oh, yeah.
It's like if you're a paramedic and you're off shift and you happen to
Yep.
be in that same situation that you
Yep.
just described, it does beg the question. Like,
Yeah,
if
I
we,
mean,
now
it's
they're
always something in the back of your mind, You want to stop and do the right thing, but then you're like, what if?
how much trouble am I going to get into?
Exactly. What could it cost me? Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are situations like that too. I think that help make it harder for, medical professionals with the right perspective in mind. They probably struggle with that.
Yeah. What do you think the state can do at this point to deal with that, to deal with health insurance costs?
I'm sure it's got a lot to do with regulation.
Yeah.
And I know that there has to be something that's making it like that. Insurance is one of those things I've never, as an adult, never really quite understood. Like I pay car insurance because, God forbid, I hit somebody, or somebody hits me and they don't have insurance. But I never really. I mean, I feel like that's just money I could just set on fire.
Right.
It would do
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
The insurance industry really does baffle me, just as a whole. So
Yeah.
I pay life insurance, and I hope to God that someday it benefits my children. I hope that I'm doing it, and I'm doing it in earnest because I don't know. Is it the right thing to do?
Yeah. I mean, it mimics the casino model, really.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
I mean,
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
you pay in,
and maybe, maybe it works out for you. I don't know.
their entire job is to collect more than they pay out. I mean, and casinos operate the same way.
It's true. Yeah.
I mean, they really do.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I don't know. I wish I knew exactly, what the fix was. But I think I need more information.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, insurance in general is very complex, and I'm sure that there are nuances between, for example, health insurance versus, auto insurance.
Oh yeah,
They're
I mean,
drastically different.
oh sure they are. Yeah,
types of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. And the all that math is probably on statistics and things like
Oh,
that that
sure.
are just they're probably vast.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
actuaries are making, I've heard many, many years ago that if you're an actuary working for an insurance company, I mean, those guys get paid very well to figure out, like, what are the chances that we're paying
yeah,
out on you or me or,
exactly. They basically have to predict the future,
yes,
right? And they have
yes.
to do it with some model of
Margin of
accuracy.
error. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I know it's not a job I could do.
Right.
I'd be
Yeah.
curious to talk to somebody who does it though. I'd love to know how it works.
Yeah, that's one of those jobs I know exists.
Hmm.
I've never actually met anyone that does
Right.
it.
Anyone who does it, exactly. That's funny. Same here.
So
Yeah.
I'll let you know if I meet one though.
Yeah,
If
you
there's
should
an
definitely
actuary
interview
out
them.
there, come on in.
Yeah,
We'll
you should
have a
definitely
chat.
interview them. That would be great. I'd watch that.
Let's talk about town budgets for a second,
Okay.
because New Bedford just had an interesting override situation, and many towns are facing Prop 2.5 overrides.
Yes. Yeah, more now than probably in the last 20 years.
Agreed. We just recently voted ours down.
Yep.
Acushnet just vote, not necessarily an override, but they just said no,
Well,
we're
yeah,
not building a new school.
yeah, it
We're
is
not going to
essentially an
contribute to
override.
that. And a lot of the rumblings that I've heard, even your mayor has come out and said a lot of it is attributed to state aid not making its way
Yeah.
down. What
Yep.
are your
Yep.
thoughts on that, and what can we
So,
do about it?
so the state actually, what we can do a lot about that actually as a state rep. They're the ones that developed that model. It's basically based on population and income and things like that. Um, you know, we're at something like 2009 levels, 2010 levels right now in terms of the money we're getting back. And it just is, they've never adjusted the formula for the new environment we're all living in. Um, my taxes alone have gone up in my where I live now, probably $1,500 to $1,600 in the last 3 years, which is quite a sharp increase,
Yeah.
right? But that's the city always says, well, it's got to do with your valuation of your home. We all understand how it works. Bottom line is, it went up. It went up, and
Yeah.
I'm not realizing the gains on my my property, right?
Right,
Like
right.
I won't ever realize that probably. Like
Right, right,
I don't have really any intention of selling my home.
right, right.
Um, so I mean that'll be money in the bank maybe for my kids if they're lucky.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that what we have to do as the state legislature, they have to look at that model that was built and adjust it for today's cost of living because it just didn't keep up. And the fact that some people in the state will say, well, there's not enough money to go around. I think it's kind of crazy when you look at the amount of money that was spent housing illegal immigrants, and the money that was spent on caring for people who we basically invited here, who were here illegally, is bananas. Like
We're
something
still
like
doing that.
something like $4 billion to date, right? Which is an enormous amount of money. Not a lot when you look at a $63 billion budget, but still a fair amount. Like
Yeah.
that money could easily be sliced up and passed out to gateway communities and all the cities and towns
Yeah.
in Massachusetts.
Well, the state had a surplus just 3 years ago,
Yeah, yeah. Well, we made quick work of that,
and
didn't we?
and now we're in debt.
Yeah,
I don't know I don't know what the exact number is today as you and I are sitting here, but
Right.
we no longer have a surplus. So
Right.
we burned through all of that,
Yep, yep.
and we,
Well, it's
now we're in the
priorities,
hole.
right? And like we just prioritize the wrong things, and I think we have to figure out what it is. I think the legislature really has to come to Jesus and talk to their constituency and say, hey, Mayor of New Bedford, why are you $32 million short? And it's the same things. It's healthcare, and it's just the cost of doing business. The cost of doing business for everybody is exponentially higher in Massachusetts today than it was 5 years ago.
Right, right.
And we
Well,
need,
and the other interesting thing is, and I realize that city budgets are very different than town budgets. They're apples and oranges, so to speak. But when I was reading about the New Bedford deficit of being 31.5 or $32 million, I thought that is half the budget of Fairhaven, where I live. I mean, you're taking these numbers and you're putting them in a different context. It's mind blowing.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
think it's amazing what the towns seem to do with their funding, like how far they get it to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the population is vastly different.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you got over 100,000 people in in the
Bedford,
city of New Bedford versus about 16,000 in Fairhaven. So I mean, I get fewer people, lower budgets.
There's about 33,000 in Dartmouth.
Yeah. So I mean, and I don't know what Dartmouth's budget is, but the point is, it's going to be really interesting because one of the representatives gave the city some cash to keep the fire station open. It was a pretty contentious thing. But then I thought about that. Well, that's only going to last.
It's a Band-Aid.
It's a very short period of time that's going to be open.
Yeah.
That's going to be covered. And then what happens when that money runs out? Like, we're going to be having this conversation again.
Sure. Well, I mean, we're having it again right now. You look at the city council just to release their cuts to the mayor's budget, and they're like, well, this is enough to keep the fire station open. But the way that happens is you have to steal from, Peter to pay Paul. And they did that throughout the entire budget. So now the mayor has to play a shell game and move money around. And at the end of the day, he likely isn't going to have the money to keep the fire station open anyway. Certainly not for any period of time. Right. So it's the problem goes back to the state, right? Like we have to have more money to run our communities. And the state has to prioritize that over, over the things that it feels for whatever reason, like moving the lottery from Braintree, where it's been my whole life, to my knowledge, to Dorchester. Like, why would you make that move?
It's going to cost you.
Nobody
much more money.
came to me in New Bedford and said, this is the justification for making this move. I mean, did anybody ask you?
No.
Nobody asked me.
And I didn't get the memo.
No. So, I don't understand why we make decisions like that, which cost real money. $20 million is a good chunk of change. It's a good amount of money. That would probably balance New Bedford's budget, or pretty close to balance it.
Yeah.
So, and that's what it's what, a fifth of your budget.
Yeah,
in Fairhaven?
Fairhaven is about 63 and a half. Call
man.
it 64 million.
But $20 million goes a long way in Fairhaven.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
It certainly would be able to keep the dog officer on the payroll, right?
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out next year. But
yeah, well, there it is. Because we're back in the same seat we are, right? A year later, you look at the budget again, going, okay, the money's been spent. Now what? So that's the problem. It's if you keep kicking the can down the road, you're going to run out of road.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing in Massachusetts.
Well, and the interesting thing about that is that we were having a conversation in Fairhaven about police and fire overtime. And as part of that conversation, there was this discussion around mutual aid. And, there's my limited understanding of these contracts is that we don't necessarily pay, it's sort of an agreement. If you need us, we'll help you. If we need you,
Right.
It's sort of a shared
And the towns sort of cover their own.
The challenge now that I have with all this in light of this situation in New Bedford is if all of the neighboring towns now are cutting back, where is the mutual aid coming from?
Well,
there's going to be less mutual aid
right.
to offer.
There's less opportunity for it. Right, exactly.
And then we all have to cross our fingers and pray to whomever or whatever we pray to that there aren't more than 2 emergencies happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you take a little bit out of what happened in Los Angeles, right, with the Palisades fire. Now, I'm sure they had budget issues there too, and they made decisions along the way to either cut fire or certainly cut fire preparedness, right? Like they left an entire reservoir at the top of the Palisades empty of water.
I don't even know.
For years.
I don't understand
right?
that.
Knowing it was a problem and never addressing it, kicking the can down the road, and look what it cost them, right? How you can ignore that fact in a community like New Bedford, where most of the homes are stick built and they're built on top of each other. There's homes in backyards of homes in New Bedford, so they're densely stacked together. it really does send a chill up your spine when you think about lowering the minimum manning to 3 people per apparatus, or shutting an entire fire company down, especially in an area that's as large as the North End, right? Like
Yeah.
it's more sparsely populated, sure, but a lot of times those guys are coming out of Station 9 and they're heading into the city, right? To help with other fires or
Yeah.
other situations.
Yeah.
So it scares me that we're going to be, we could potentially, leave that wide open for problems. Like you say, you cross your fingers and pray
Right.
that nothing bad happens, but we see how quickly it can happen.
Yeah.
We saw it twice in the last 5 years between LA and Hawaii.
Well, and here's what no one's talking about, and I think this is what people have, again, but Los Angeles is a prime example of this. Insurance companies saw the risk in Los Angeles and adjusted their premiums accordingly.
Yeah.
Trust and believe they're going to be making the same. I mean, it may not happen tomorrow, but at some point in the near
it's gonna
future,
be,
they're going to go,
oh yeah, New Bedford
okay, you
dropped
no
a fire
longer have a
company.
fire. Yes.
Right.
They're going to
There's
be adjusting.
30 less firefighters, 5 less pieces of equipment, and one less
It increases
station.
it
Yep, for
increases
sure.
the loss risk.
That's where the actuarials come in, right?
I
Those
mean,
guys go, oh, hey,
and no one's
this is what
talking
we're
about
missing.
that.
No, yeah,
That'll
'cause
be an after, down the road.
yeah,
People
that'll
will
be
get their
something
insurance bills and
exactly.
go,
In 2 years, you're going to go, what happened again? You know what? I mean, I don't know about you. My home insurance is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I've never had a claim. I don't know how.
right. I've never had a claim
It's
either.
almost $5,000, and I'm like, how is that possible?
It's wild.
And
And the thing is that
God,
if you,
I'm
God
thankful that I
forbid,
can pay for it, but
if you had a claim, they'd cut you off
yeah,
the
they
next
drop
day.
you. I hear it all the time. Oh yeah, the hurricane ripped the roof off my house. I put in a claim and they dropped my insurance. What? Or I had a fire and they dropped my claim. They
Yeah.
dropped my insurance. Well, it's not your fault you had a fire.
Right, right.
Fires typically are accidents. Unless you cause it, unless it's arson. But for the most part, they're accidents.
Right.
So I don't know. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah. Wild. How do people find you to
Oh.
learn more about your platform?
So I have a website. It's
Okay.
henrybousquet.com.
Okay.
Real easy to find if you can spell my name. And it's Henry. And my last name is like bouquet with an S. So it's Bousquet. So it's really easy to find. henrybousquet.com. It probably doesn't come right up on Google because, you got to pay for optimization.
Yeah.
But it's there, and it kind of tells you in a really good sense of where I come from, and what I'm all about. And I come from New Bedford. That's where I was born and raised. My parents were city workers. My father drove a trash truck for 33 years.
An old school trash truck?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
he hang off the back?
Yes, he did. Yeah, when he was young.
Can
when he
we
was,
bring those
Before he
back?
was a driver. Yeah, I know. Well, those trucks were also the ones that plowed the roads when you
Yes.
had 25 inches of snow.
Yes.
Can't do it with an S10,
No.
So that's there's that. So my dad did that. My mother worked in City Hall. She passed away when I was young, though. She died when I was 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was 36. She had multiple sclerosis.
Oh, no.
And in 1985, that was kind of something new.
Yeah, they didn't know what they know now.
Yeah, now there's ways to live with it. People. I have friends who have it and they live with it. I mean, unfortunately, she wasn't able to. So
Yeah.
we lost her when I was 10. I have a brother who's like a year and 11 months younger than me. So someone said to me the other day, "Oh, you definitely have that big brother energy." I don't know quite what that. I hope that was I think it was a compliment. I don't know, but that's
We'll
kind
take
of
it
what
as a
I've been told.
compliment.
I think so. I took it as a compliment. But that's kind of how I grew up. Pretty independently minded and hardworking. I had to get a job. As a kid, what do you get? I got a paper route, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's what I got to help out, and if I wanted to spend money, I had to earn it. And then that was it. I mean, I kind of spun out from there. I got a job doing dishes and prep work at Candleworks, and worked my way up through the restaurant business locally.
Candleworks, that's going way back.
Oh yeah,
I mean, Candleworks hasn't
it was
been
a
around
French
for a
restaurant.
while.
It was a French restaurant when I worked there under Marcel Godbout. And then I worked for the Pasta House, which is now
Boca.
Boca. And I worked for Kate Corey's in Westport. I don't know if you remember that, but that was a beautiful little place on a farm. And I pretty much cut my teeth as a chef locally.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of work for Walt Disney World. I went down as a college programmer.
Oh, wow.
When I was in college,
Okay.
I got a degree in communications from BCC, paid for it as I went, and worked a full-time job and did an internship. And then I ended up getting an opportunity to go to work for Disney. So I went down there and tried it out, and I really liked it. It was fun. It was I mean, I figured if I'm going to leave Massachusetts and move to Florida and make $5.25 an hour, at least it's the happiest place on earth,
Yeah.
right? And at the time, it really was. Like, we had a great time working there. It was.
I wonder if it
people I
still
worked with.
is.
I don't know. I have friends that work for the company.
I mean, it's a pretty
So-
expensive place on earth.
Oh,
I
it
don't know
sure
if it's the
is.
happiest place on earth,
sure
but it is
is.
expensive.
I saw yesterday somebody posted a video about what's more expensive, a vacation in Disney or a vacation in the Maldives on one of those fancy over-the-water condos.
yeah.
And it was Disney.
I'm not even shocked by that.
I know. So I did that, and I grew up in restaurants. I had my own restaurant, actually. My first place was a little restaurant I bought I bought the space, I bought the opportunity, I should say, for like $17,000.
Oh,
And I had a
wow.
little, it was a little 38-seat diner on the corner of Nusset and Mount Pleasant Street
Oh,
in my
wow.
neighborhood. And I did that for like 3 years. And then Cobblestone, I got a little bird told me that was on the market, and I went to talk to that owner. We worked out a deal, and I went into business there, and I ran that for 4 years, and I got a really high quality
The restaurant
business
business
education.
is not for the faint of
I got
heart.
a very, very quick business education out of that one, and I left there just barely clinging to my financial life existence. Like, I had to
Wow.
mortgage the house, the whole nine. Like,
wow.
it was ugly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I learned a lot about business. And like you said, the restaurant business is not for the faint of heart. It is a difficult business to manage. And I have friends who do it now. And I talk to them all the time. I feel like, I feel like they could all use sounding board. And that's what they need. They need people to just listen to what they're going through, And part of it is just regulations and, mass mandates and things like that
I mean, you
they
got to
just have to
encourage more
respond
small
to.
business in this state. I mean, small business is the engine that
It
if
is.
that engine stalls,
It is.
the economy is up a creek.
Yep, for sure. So I think that building the small business base in Massachusetts is probably the most important thing we can do. And to do that, we have to lower utilities. We have to lower the general cost of living here in the state.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to do that is to cut costs. On a state level, we have to look really at what we're spending money on, and decide. It's the nonprofit sector in Massachusetts is also ginormous. It's huge. That was one of the things I always scratched my head about in New Bedford. There was lots of, we used to call it pink property on our property tax map. The pink property was the property in New Bedford that didn't get taxed. It was quite a bit of it.
Oh,
It's
sure.
probably a third, if not more, of the city. So, and that's,
Yeah, because churches, I think, are exempt.
churches, nonprofits, there are
Yeah.
different things, different entities.
Hospitals generally don't. I mean, they
Don't.
don't in Boston.
Yeah, they're nonprofits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, you wonder, right? You
Yeah.
get your CEO making $1 million.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel nonprofit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So
So you have your website spooled up. Are
Yep.
you on social media? Are you
yeah,
on?
I have a Facebook page, CTE Henry Bousquet. That's Committee to Elect. That's my Facebook page. I have my personal Facebook page,
Yeah,
obviously under
sure.
my own name. I have a number. My number is 508-989-7487. I've had the same number for almost 30 years now. So people know how to reach me. They can reach me at that number pretty good. I'm almost. I love answering the phone and talking to people.
Okay.
Especially if they've got issues, and I think I can help them with them. If I can't help you with it, I'm going to tell you right away.
Yeah.
That's just not something that the government gets involved in.
Right.
But there are other resources, right? Lots of the entities that we do support around here have ways to help people. So.
What do you have? Do you have any events happening between now? I mean, it's a long road between now and November.
Yeah.
Well, I
it
should
doesn't
say
feel like it. It's about
September,
70 days
but-
until the primary.
Yeah. Which is
and
kind of a lifetime in politics. Well, maybe a half a lifetime
It
in
feels like
politics,
it.
but
It feels like it. There's definitely a lot to do.
yeah.
And I'm working on that. Yeah, we do have, we've got some things sort of in the works, but nothing that we've inked in yet.
Got it. Okay.
But I'm looking. I want to do a fundraiser that people can afford to come to. My kickoff, was a little bit more pricey because we had a nice venue. We were at Cask and Pig, and it's a lot. I have to say I got to take a sticker shock when I started calling around to find out what it costs to have events today at venues,
yeah.
and I kind of should have already known. Gone to their days or I remember the last big party I threw as a city councilor was at the Century House, and it was like $25 my cost for like an open bar and hors d'oeuvres. That is not the case anymore.
No. No.
You're looking to get beer and wine for just $25,
Yeah.
So it's if you want to be able to offer something, it's difficult to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I encourage people, if they want to help with the campaign, if they would like to support me financially, there is a link on my website, and it's just a PayPal link. I know PayPal's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's really, for me, it was the fastest thing to get out there. Now I'm working with another organization. I didn't want to go with like a WinRed or something that was like particularly partisan. So I work with this other organization called Anadot, and I should have that set up in a couple of days.
Okay.
They do a lot of vetting to make sure that you're not fake, and to make sure that you're following all the OCPF regulations and things like that. So there's a lot of moving parts there. So I should have all those things sorted out before the end of the week this week.
But I imagine you'll have updates on your social media and stuff.
Yeah,
like
all the
what's
time.
happening.
Yep. That's the other thing too, man. Social media, right? That's a whole nother animal. Like, I'm 50. I didn't really grow up with it, but I kind of grew into it. I was that generation who was like in 1994. They're like, "Hey, this is the internet. Check it out." And then all my friends were on AOL, waiting for listening to the dial-up tone, and it was. It was interesting. It was interesting coming up in that world, right? Like, I was probably that first generation that I met my spouse on the internet. Wasn't at the supermarket. There were wherever other people
comparing apples.
Where where your parents would introduce you to someone's son or something like that, or someone's daughter. I think that's the best way to do it, really.
Yeah. We'll have to bring it back with your team.
I know, we're gonna have to. Yeah.
So.
For sure.
All right, a couple of housekeeping things. So, for folks that are interested in voting, Tuesday, September 1st is the primary. Please get out, cast your votes. And the general election is Tuesday, November 3rd.
That's right.
So a lot happening between now and then. But please use this as an opportunity to meet and greet, ask candidates important questions, and most importantly, get out and vote.
Absolutely. That is probably the most important thing you can do. If you don't really have opinions on anything, pick a side.
Yeah.
Like it's time to do what's best for Massachusetts and what's best for you.
Yeah, and get it back on track.
I agree, 100%.
Because we deserve a place to live that is affordable and where we can grow.
Yeah, without a doubt. And where our kids can stay.
Yeah.
And we can enjoy that family community,
100%. Well, listen, best of luck to you on your campaign.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
It's gonna be an interesting ride for sure, but I wish you the very, very best.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course.